happy Friday, and believe it or not, it is our May Friday focus. Very excited today to have Dr. Brian Davidson here from Mindvue. Stayed connected with Brian, Iowa guy. We were catching up on here before, and excited he's going to go back a little bit on nostalgia here and share some insights for superintendents and other leaders from his dissertation work, but really has made a career and a life purpose around some of the insights he's going to share today. So asked him to present. I think this is a timely topic about resilience, grit, hopefully retention with our school leaders out there, which is critical in May. Thinking about how busy the spring is and already thinking about summer and next year too. So Brian, super excited to hear from you today and some of the insights you can share with our audience. And again, our last May Friday focus of the year before we think about these for next year. So you get to wind things down for us this year.
Well, terrific. Well, thanks for having me on here, Trent, and I appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit of knowledge with your superintendents and principals here. So as Trent said, my name is Brian Davidson, everybody, and I'm originally a small town guy from Harlan, Iowa, and so came down to Kansas since then and have spent my time down here, really loving life. But I'm the founder of a company called Mindvue, and we basically specialize in measuring and developing mindsets in people. But my goal for today is to share with you some of the research that we've done here over the past several years, going all the way back to my dissertation. So I did my doctoral work at the University of Kansas, and I was really interested on what makes successful leaders tick. And so we looked at this model called transformational leadership behavior. And we're trying to figure out what actually predicts whether or not a leader, in this case, it was a bunch of school principals across the state of Kansas, whether or not these leaders were demonstrating transformational leadership behavior, but more importantly, what actually predicts whether or not they are showing this transformational leadership skills. And so first off, let me explain what transformational leadership is all about. So there's four key components to transformational leadership behavior. The first of which is this individualized consideration. So this is all about what we know about great leaders is that they recognize that everybody has a unique strength, okay? And then they try to work to allow that person to use those strengths on a regular basis. The second part of this is this idealized influence. And this is all about a sense of trust that they develop within the organization. People kind of look up to them. Third is this instant motivation, which is all about they get people excited about the cause, the mission of what they're trying to do. And then the fourth here is intellectual stimulation, that great leaders, these transformational leaders, they tend to get people to think, they tend to challenge them, they welcome feedback and really kind of promote an idea of constant growth within the organization. And so again, we were trying to figure out what actually predicts whether or not somebody, in this case, these school principals, we were demonstrating this transformational leadership behavior. So we look at a whole bunch of different factors, ranging from a mother's level of education, the school principal's high school GPA from back in the day, to their levels of grit, which is all about this passion, perseverance for long-term goals, their age, their gender, father's level of education, how long they'd been a school administrator, the leader's level of hope. And hope in psychology is not about just wishing for the best, but much more about when somebody hits roadblocks and obstacles, do they feel like they can find pathways around those roadblocks and obstacles? And then the last component that we looked at was undergraduate GPA. So we found among all these variables that we looked at that 3 of these actually predicted transformational leadership behavior in those school principals. Any guess what there might be for the people that we have on at all? Any of all these? Again, there were 3. Any guess which 3 might have popped up as our key predictors of transformational leadership behavior? Go ahead and take yourself off mute and chime in if you've got a guess.
I can go with hope.
So we got hope. Okay. Amanda says hope. Anybody else?
I'm just hoping it wasn't high school GPA or undergraduate GPA, because I failed miserably at those. So
And grit.
We'd be in trouble, right?
Yeah.
And grit as well. All right. Well, let's take a look here. So the 3 that we found were the best predictors of transformational leadership behavior. First was the leader's level of hope. Okay, what we found is great leaders tend to be hopeful leaders, that these great leaders basically communicate a message that we will find a way, that they identify roadblocks as they pop up, but they ultimately find pathways around those roadblocks as they arise. Now, the second best predictor was that leader's level of grit. So we find that great leaders tend to be also gritty leaders, that they have this passion for what they're doing, and they also have the sense that I can stick with this for not just for days to weeks, but rather months to years to longer time periods. So they have that perseverance of effort over time. And then the last factor here that predicted me, I'll say it was just a very slight predictor, was in fact the leader's gender. That we found that females were more likely to be demonstrating transformational leadership behavior than males. Now, for my fellow gentlemen out there, I will say again, it was just a very slight predictor, but we did find it to be statistically significant here in the data set. But most importantly, what we found, again, were these leaders' levels of hope and grit were the great predictors. It wasn't their cognitive ability as measured by their high school and collegiate grades. It wasn't their family background. Interestingly, it wasn't about their years of experience or their age. We thought maybe with age comes wisdom. Maybe that would play a role, but no, it was the leaders' levels of hope and grit were by far the very best predictors. Now, when we're looking at these results, so I did all my coursework ranging from 2008 and finished up in 2013. And back then we'd see data like this, right? Where we'd see these people that were doing well, that were scoring high in a lot of these factors like grit, growth mindset, resilience. And so at that stage in the game, we really thought kind of a person just had these factors to them, and that a person succeeds, that they are a great leader because they have hope, because they have grit, because they are resilient as a person. And as we continue to do more and more testing, what we've come to understand is these factors are much less trait-like than what we initially thought about. And so as we continue to do more and more testing, we've had the wonderful opportunity to assess just an amazingly array of different key leaders. We're talking about CEOs of organizations, military generals, school leaders like yourself here, professional athletes, you name it. And as we've tested many of these different groups, again, very high performing groups in many cases, we'd occasionally see these scores that would be kind of outliers or kind of really left us scratching our heads trying to figure out, well, what's going on? Because this person on the outward side, you look at them, you'd say, well, they're the epitome of grit and resilience and motivation. But in some cases, those individuals would score a little bit lower than we anticipated on this tool. And what we came to find in talking with them is when you're measuring these factors, really what you're capturing is not so much do you just have it or not. So it's not about just having grit or resilience or hope, but instead what we are capturing is more of how is this person thinking and feeling? Are they feeling motivated? Are they feeling hopeful? Are they feeling gritty at this particular point in time? So it's been, from a scientific lens, it's been very insightful to come to this understanding. And then also what we found too is that there's so many different factors that can shape and influence a person's mindset, like with regards to these factors of hope and grit, that all the external factors going on in a person's life, that stuff matters. In many cases, it matters to a great degree. So we never want to look at these factors in isolation as just kind of innate traits of an individual, but rather see this as more of a glimpse of where's a person's mindsets, where's their mindset at. So then the next question is, what do we do as leaders? As school leaders here to build up these skills? If we want to be transformational leaders, we really need to be taking steps to build that hope and grit in others. And to give you some insight on how we do this, something that we found time and time again is that relationships are a key fundamental piece to building hope and grit in other people. I'll share a very personal example. So I came down to graduate school at the University of Kansas in 2008 after I started off my career as a teacher up in the Twin Cities. And as I was going through graduate school, I initially started in the field of counseling psychology, with a doctorate in the field of counseling psych. And that's where I started to learn about all these factors like grit and resilience, growth mindset, hope, and these other elements. But as I was going through that program, I realized what I really wanted to do with my life and career was not to be a psychologist that would work on depression, anxiety, and that sort of thing. But instead, my passion revolved around these skills. And so I was trying to find a way to actually do this sort of work for my life and career. And I ended up switching paths over to educational leadership. And so that's where my doctorate's on. And that program allowed me to return back to teach. And as I was teaching, I was going through this ed leadership program that was preparing me largely to be a principal or superintendent. And I was going through this internship and working with our principal at the school I was at the time. And I was kind of thinking I should probably tell him what I was truly thinking about with regards to my career. But boy, oh boy, I was so scared to do that, because I thought, boy, if I tell him what I really want to do, would he just look at me and say, well, what are you doing here? Why are you wasting our time? Maybe I should get rid of you. But for this particular leader, his name's Tim Brady, wonderful, great principal, wonderful leader to this day, great mentor for me still. I said, Tim, I really don't want to be a teacher. I don't really want to be a principal. I don't want to be a superintendent. But I said, what I really want to do is I want to develop a company that would kind of specialize in trying to measure and build up some of these mental factors, the hope and grit and resilience. And again, I was scared out of my mind to tell him this, but I'll never forget how he responded. Tim looked at me and he said, Brian, what can I do to help you get there? And for me, that was a game changer, everyone, because here I had this leader, okay, who took the time, number one, to listen to what my interests were, but more importantly, helped to foster me, okay, in that growth and development, and encourage me to pursue those dreams and ambitions of what I was doing. So I can tell you from there forward, I was willing to walk through walls for that particular great leader in Tim Brady. And he was, again, just a wonderful individual. But that's what we find with regards to a lot of the science behind this is hope and grit and resilience. It's really cultivated primarily through people and those relationships that we have. And one of the great ways as leaders that we can help to build hope and grit and these other mental factors within our people is through modeling these skills. And so what I want to walk you through here is a real fascinating study that was done several years back. This is published in Science back in 2017, but such a fascinating study that was done to show the importance of modeling these behaviors so that way others can see this. And so what they did in this particular study is they brought in these 18-month-old kids and they put them into one of three conditions. The first of which was the effort condition. The second condition was the no effort condition. And then the third was this baseline condition. Let me walk you through what they did here. So in step one of this, in this effort condition, they brought in the 18-month-old child and they sat them down, and the researcher comes in with a little box here that is basically like a clear box with a toy inside of it. And the researcher struggles and struggles and struggles for 30 seconds and finally gets this little toy out of that box and celebrates having this toy. They then move into step two in the study, where they largely did the same thing with the toy on the end of a carabiner. And the researcher shows this toy and is asking, like, how do I get this thing off of here? And struggles and struggles and struggles for 30 seconds and finally gets the toy off the carabiner. They then move the child into the step three of the study, where they introduced the 18-month-old this music box. And on the top of this music box was this white button. And they lead the child to believe that if you touch that white button, push that button, that gets the music to play. But in reality, how this was set up is, in addition to that white button on the top, there's also a very small button on the bottom that they had to simultaneously push to close the circuit to get that music to play. But of course, the 18-month-old child really has no idea about this. They then, again, lead the child to believe that that white button gets the music to play, and then hands the music box over into step four. And they counted to see how many times would that child try to push that white button to get the music to play before they gave up. Okay, so that was the effort condition. In the no effort condition, they bring the child into step one here with that toy box, with the box with the toy inside of it, and easily get the toy out. There's no struggle whatsoever, puts it back in, easily pulls it out again a second time, and does that again a third time. They then move into step two here, where they have that carabiner with the toy on the end and easily get it off. So the child's really not seeing any sort of struggle. The adult is able to accomplish their goals very easily. Again, puts it back on the carabiner, easily pulls it back off a second and a third time. Move to step three here, where they introduce that music box with the white button, lead the child to believe that white button leads the music to play, and then hands the box over in step four to see how many times they would push that white button before they gave up, started to cry, or ask for help. In the baseline condition here, the third part of the study, they basically ignored step one and step two. So the child did not watch any adult whatsoever, but instead they just moved them directly into step three, introduced the music box to them, leading to believe that that white button gets the music to play, and then hands the box over. So they wanted to figure out how many times would the child push the button before giving up. Take a look at this. This is what they found. In the baseline condition, okay, where the child did not watch any adult whatsoever, they pushed that button on average 11 times. In the no effort condition, where they saw the adult basically get what they wanted, they attained their goal with ease, with very little effort involved, the child pushed the button on average 12 times. But in the effort condition, where they watched the adult struggle and have to persist and persevere in attaining their goal, when they were given that music box, on average, the children in that effort condition pushed the button on average 22.5 times, over twice what we saw there in the baseline condition. In the conclusion of this paper, the scholars wrote, the current study suggests the potential value in letting children see you sweat. Showing children that hard work works might encourage them to work hard too. Now, everyone, if this is going on with 18-month-old kids, might this also happen with elementary, middle school, and high school kids in our districts? Might this same thing happen with the teachers within our schools and the other educational leaders who are working to lead and serve these stakeholders? And I think the answer is pretty clear, right? That it's definitely yes. And if we can model these skills as leaders, if we can model hope, if we can model grit, if we can model resilience, that tends to build up these skills in others. So I'm going to conclude with this last little thought here to leave you with a quote here that I hold near and dear to my own heart. It's from Frank Outlaw. And he says, watch your thoughts, they become words. Watch your words, they become actions. Watch your actions, they become habits. Watch your habits, they become character. Watch your character, it becomes your destiny. But you see, everyone, we have to look where it all starts. And it all starts right up here with our thoughts. It starts with our mindset. So with that, thank you all so much for what you are doing in our schools. As a Iowan myself originally, now living down in Kansas City, Iowa definitely is a very important part of our lives here back home. So thank you for what you're doing for all the students and the communities there back home. And I wish you all the best. So with that, I will open it up for some questions or pass it back to Trent. If you have any questions, we'll open it up. Oh, one last thing here. I will make note because Trent is a great friend here. I wanted to provide anybody that's interested. We've got this assessment, okay, that can help give you some insight and awareness for where's your level of hope at right now? Where's your level of grit and resilience and all these other different factors? And if you would be interested to see where your mindset's scoring relative to thousands and thousands of other people across the world, I'd be happy to send you an invite to be able to get this. It's completely complimentary. If you do have some interest in doing this, my email address is right here, bdavidson@mindvue.com. Please put in the subject line GLS for Frontmeyer Leadership Services, and then put your first name and last name, because that's what we'll need to basically send you an invite. First name, last name, and then your email. So if you want to get a glimpse of where your mindset's at right now, it's a 15-minute assessment. Feel free to send me a little email there, and I'll send you an invite. So with that, Trent, feel free to take it from here.
Yeah, well, Brian, thank you. First of all, it's very generous of you, and appreciate that with the leaders that are on, or might reach out to you directly. And I've had the opportunity to do it. I would just say publicly here too. And you get a nice report back to kind of check in where you're at. And I know Mindvue also offers a lot of tutorials and strategies, resources to help grow some of the areas that maybe aren't as clear or aren't as a strength for you to grow mindset and resilience as well. So thank you for that, Brian. And thanks for the insights today. Fascinating study you shared there too. I was wondering, where are we going with this? And some pretty good insights there from 18-month-old kids, I should say. Well, we will have some informal discussion here. Thank you again, Brian, for being on and not forgetting your old stomping grounds here in Iowa. Happy to stay in touch with you. And again, for all of you that have tuned in throughout the year to our Friday focus for networking and insights like this, today, hopefully there's timely topics and always open to ideas and topics that superintendents and principals in Iowa and beyond want insights on. We'll try to find the best people to deliver. So thanks for a great year, and have a great weekend.